Hi, my name is Jim Byrne, Principal Systems Engineer for DataPivot Technologies. Today, I'd like to go over some of the hidden savings you can get with a DataPivot Commvault appliance. Now, the savings I'm talking about are the savings you get by refreshing your gear. Now, I go to some places and people think, I've got all this old gear, maybe we could use it for a media agent. And the stuff is like 5 years old. And the two things everybody picks up on right away, right off the top of their head, is everything gets more dense over time because computers get better and better, they get more efficient. So rack space goes down. That's number one. Number two is the maintenance. When you start getting up around 5 years old, the odds of something breaking inside the computer make it so the current hardware vendor, whoever's supporting your gear, doesn't want to deal with it because it's likely to break. So when you go to third party, then it's like insurance. It's more likely to break, so the price goes up as the stuff gets past 5 years. So that's the other cost. So the two things everybody right away thinks about is rack space, and they think about the maintenance costs. But the one other thing that gets missed is everybody knows things use more power from 5 years ago than they do today. What does that cost? So that's what I thought we'd go through today, just show you a typical cost. So what I did was I took a configuration from 5 years ago in 2016 and compared it to a new configuration today in 2021. The old configuration from 5 years ago was a media agent that had half a kilowatt of power. It was a DL380 from HP. There was a CN involved in connecting these two. And it doesn't use the whole CN switch. It uses one little slice of it. It doesn't use all the ports, obviously. So I just called it point 0.2 for my share for the backups. And then for the appliance itself, it was a NetApp filer, and then two controllers, and then it had a couple of disk shelves, and it used 1.5 kilowatts an hour. So when you add all of this up, and I do want to note the if you look at the power consumption for all of these I use, they always have continuous or typical, and then they have worst case. I used typical, so these are conservative. So that's 2.2 kilowatts an hour, and then you have 52.8 kilowatts a day, 24 hours in a day. Multiply that out by 365 days in a year, comes out to 19,272 kilowatts, multiplied by $0.2 per kilowatt. Now that's the cost here in New England. Around the country that could vary. So you can adjust this, for your area, if you want to do like a comparison, but that's what it is here. So when I take this number here, multiply by zero point 0.2, that comes out to $3,854 a year to run all this. Multiply by 5 years, say the life of the appliance, that you want to keep all this stuff. And that comes out to $19,272. Now the DataPivot appliance is a 2U appliance. It has disk, compute, memory, everything right in it. So it's all self-contained. And the one we sell today has 320 terabytes. That's our largest one. This configuration was 353 terabytes. So it's a little bigger, but it's in the ballpark. It's comparable. So the DataPivot appliance uses half a kilowatt an hour, 12 kilowatts a day, 4,380 kilowatts a year. Multiply that by 0.2, comes out to $876 a year. And then when you work it out over 5 years, it's 4,380. Now, if I subtract this from this, I come out with a savings of $14,892. It's like the price of a small car. It's a lot of money. Now, that money you could use to pay for a good chunk of a new appliance. So it's something to think about. And the other problem with using older gear is you have to really think about if the place burns down, let's say I recycle this stuff, I'm being a hero, I think I'm saving money, and you've got to restore a whole data center. You have old gear that's been sitting there, not doing a heck of a lot, it's doing backups every night, but through deduplication that Commvault uses, if you watch the disks, they don't work that hard. But when you go to do those restores, these disks are going to be working. So the odds of something breaking in the middle of recovering the company is probably high. So is it really worth it? Probably not. These things are it's the backup. It's the storage of last resort is really what it is. So you really wanted to have it on some good gear so that it works when you need it. So again, the DataPivot appliance is just 2U, 2 network connections, 2 power connections. An old configuration from 5 years ago is 2 U's, 2 network connections, 2 power connections, 2 or more SAN connections. Then I got a SAN switch with 2 power connections in it. Then I've got a net app with multiple SAN connections going into it. And then this controller has two power connections, that has two power connections, that has two power connections, and this probably has a network connection for management. So you think about all of those extra connections, from your switches and SANs and all that, that's money as well. So it's something to think about. Now, so if you have some old gear or you want to expand your environment and you're thinking about doing that, feel free to contact us right here, contact at datapivottech.com, and we'll be glad to chat with you about your Commvault environment and your hardware needs, and we're glad to help you out. All right, thank you for your time.